Welcome back, Thrivers, to another fantastic guest episode on the Thriving Equine Professional. And as you have come to know of me, I love to stalk people on LinkedIn and find new friends. It's like my favorite thing to do this year. And so my newest friend is with us today, Miss Maria Pizzini. And Maria is the investing equestrian. So, Thrivers, we have not really dove into the opportunities in and around the equine industry as it relates to maybe some of you have an interest in the financial side of our business. That could go a lot of ways, Maria. So, I am so excited to dive into this aspect, talk a little bit about your history and your career and what you do and how you do it. So, with no further ado, welcome to the Thriving Equine Professional, Maria Pizzini.
Thank you so much, Jodi. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, and so we really did connect on LinkedIn, and I did my kind of random reach out and say, hey, you look like a thriving equine professional, and I would love to meet you and talk with you. And then you agreed to come on the podcast. So, first and foremost, I love to share that with our listeners because I want to inspire and encourage them to do the same thing, to continue to connect with people in and around the industry that are doing things they might be interested in doing, and meeting people who maybe are a few years ahead of them in their academic or career trajectory and journeys. And so I really am very excited to kind of unpack what you have to share with us today. Now, you, I think, are in what I call southeastern Pennsylvania. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit about home for Maria and where you are.
I'm right outside Philadelphia, so about 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. I actually just recently moved from Florida. I was in Miami for 7 years and recently moved last year for a great job opportunity. So I'm getting a little bit adjusted to the culture, the weather for sure. And I brought with me my fiance, my horse, and my dog. So we're all kind of adjusting to life up north.
I would say that's a huge transition from Miami to Philadelphia area. And so you have clearly survived the winter and no one packed up and ran away. I mean, did the dog want to run away, the horse, the fiance, anybody, or everybody's doing okay?
I think the horse actually acclimated the best. My dog, on the other hand, I think she prefers the warmer weather. She refused to go outside when it was snowing, raining. I tried to give her a jacket, refused to put that on. So I think she's having a little bit of a hard time adjusting, as am I, because it's different to go from sunny almost every day in Florida to then you have dark and gloomy days up here. But now that we're heading into summer and I see sun now and sunshine and warm
Yes.
weather. It's definitely making me a little bit happier.
Okay, good. And so I think we also talked about this, but I've just arrived this past weekend to my Maryland, what I call our kind of Maryland home. We both have family here, and so we spend a lot of our summer. And so I'm right down the road from you, and maybe we'll at least get to meet each other in person sometime over the summer while we're both in the same kind of geography here.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that.
Yes. And so, but I think you went to school, Maria, in Pennsylvania. And so maybe we'll start there, right? Because I really want to kind of lead our listeners into your story of how you came to be the investing equestrian and be such a leader in what we might call wealth management, really. I mean, so you've spent your career in and around the finance side of the industry and on the professional side. So let's start with kind of where you're from. You're a lifelong equestrian, and let our listeners know a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am a lifelong equestrian, been riding since, I was very little. I actually, in all disclosure, grew up in Pennsylvania, so I shouldn't be that shocked by the weather, but your blood does thin in Florida, so that is true. So I did
True.
grow up in Pennsylvania. I went to school at Franklin and Marshall College, which is in Lancaster, and I actually went to school to be pre-vet. So that was kind of my trajectory going into college, was on that pre-vet track. And I ended up changing my major to business. It was a liberal arts school, so we didn't have any specialties, but business and finance kind of went together. So I changed my major my sophomore year. And I took finance courses, and in all honesty, when I was taking finance courses in college, didn't love it. Didn't think I was going to be in finance at all. And lo and behold, right after college, my first job was in Malvern and at a financial institution as a financial representative. So didn't want to be in finance, ended up there. And I'm so thankful that I did, because as soon as I kind of got a glimpse of the financial world, I absolutely fell in love.
That's crazy. So you didn't fall in love with it in college, but your first job and that was it. Sold, and that's where you've stayed and remained and continue to thrive.
Yes, yes. I did have a couple detours in marketing and operations just because I do love being, not just in finance. I love kind of exploring different avenues, which I don't think is really talked about now. Usually, it's like you go to college for one thing, that's your path, and you have to stay focused. But I think it's very beneficial and valuable to kind of get a glimpse of all the different, I was going to say disciplines for riding, but,
Right.
kind of all the different aspects of a career.
Amen. I couldn't agree more. And I've talked about that in some episodes, but Maria, I don't think we talk about that enough, especially to our young people. Be versatile, right? Go get
Yes.
those experiences. And so maybe it is finance, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's sales, but go explore some of those opportunities, whether it's a single class or an internship or, whatever that looks like. So I think that's really interesting. But let's also clarify that when you went into finance, it was not equine finance, right? So
It was
you've
not.
spent, yeah. So you've been out, and I call you a first decade, right? So you're in your first decade of career. And so you're at least 5 years out, but you're not yet 10. And so you have spent your career really on the professional side of wealth management and finance with no equine emphasis. And that has come later on. So, talk a little bit about your early career and what that looked like, and how you then have started to build something that's a little bit more niche that marries your passion with your career.
Yes, so that's completely correct. When I, entered into finance, I got my licenses and started as a financial advisor. You can work with anyone. We can choose our clients. I was working with a broad range of businesses and individuals and families, and that equestrian niche really didn't come until, I guess, I would say halfway through that 10 years when I was out, a couple of years past. And that came organically and naturally. People in my community and my network, because I was still very much involved in the equestrian community as a rider, groom. I would always be at the barn. They would start coming to me with questions about finance and ask me about investing and ask me about, different accounts that they should, that I would suggest, and kind of looking for that guidance. And as I was getting more and more people coming to me, I was like, oh, you know what? I could actually, make this a career and focus on this because it's much needed in the equestrian community, which I didn't realize until I kept on having a ton of individuals come to me with questions. And then I guess it was now 2 years ago, I started the Investing Equestrian, which is basically an educational platform that is meant to, educate and empower equestrians to kind of live the equestrian lifestyle, but also secure, a solid financial future and give them a backing as to, what finance is, how to invest, how do I go about living this passion in a financially responsible way.
Well, I think that's interesting from so many aspects, because let's face it, I don't believe that our industry has a real strong reputation for being smart with money necessarily. There's a lot of folks that might say, how to make money with horses, start with money, right? And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, really being able to understand that you started to have those conversations. I love, as you said, organically, and you realized the need. And so you talk about your ability to educate and help people manage their finances, manage their wealth, achieve goals. So when you started the Investing Equestrian, let's talk a little bit about that. I think that's pretty generational. Did you start on TikTok or Insta? Tell us a little bit of, tell us more.
I was actually very nervous to start this account, honestly, because I wasn't sure how people would take it because money is such a taboo subject in the equestrian industry. And to go on social media that is very public and basically start talking about topics that aren't really discussed in the equestrian community or that are taboo in the equestrian community, I was very nervous about the reaction that I would get from everyone and the feedback. But when I started this, the feedback I got was just outstanding. I was actually quite shocked and surprised by how many people had DM'd me saying, "I love your page. Thank you so much for this. I'm learning so much." And that kind of gave me the motivation and inspiration to just keep going and to keep, putting myself out there, which is sometimes very scary to do on social media.
Yeah.
But it's been such a journey, and I'm hoping to be a little bit more consistent with it for social media, but it did start on Instagram, and then
Okay.
I'm starting to expand to other platforms to hopefully get the word out and just get education, financial education out there. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think you look very polished and professional in your presence. I, follow you now on Insta, but obviously our first connection was LinkedIn. And so the posts that you're making there, I just feel like are really resonating with folks. You had one, I have to say that my favorite one is your post about the craziest horse related financial decision you've ever made. And yours was, let me start. I bought a horse. And I laughed out loud, like I know that's meant a little bit, in jest, but at the same time, amen. Like anyone who has bought a horse, that is probably the one of the craziest financial decisions we've ever made, especially if we are in a family with non-horse people.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very thankful that my partner is very, very supportive of the horse addiction because I don't know how I would be able to do it without the support and not being able to get questioned every single time I have to, spend $300 on my horse's shoes, or if we're going to go to a show, or, we have to put some money towards vet bills. I'm very happy that, it's a good conversation between the two of us. And that's actually something that I've talked about on both my social media and also on my LinkedIn is how to navigate the finances as an equestrian with a non-equestrian spouse, because I think that's so incredibly important.
It is. I mean, you are essentially becoming like a therapist for the industry, right? Because to your point, money can be a very taboo subject. And then just talking about how to plan. I think that so many of us maybe weren't raised that way. And we don't have a strong foundation of financial management and the understanding of what that means. And quite frankly, horses can be very contributory to living paycheck to paycheck, right? And so, how do you find that conversation kind of starts with potential clients for you? Is it someone who has oftentimes never had a financial advisor previously?
It really ranges. So some of the individuals I work with have had financial advisors or do have financial advisors. They just aren't as knowledgeable about the equestrian industry, which is where I think I can really step in and assist, because you can go, a lot of places and have a financial advisor. But I think what really differentiates me from a lot of the other financial advisors is I can talk horse to you. So I understand, the maintenance costs, the boarding costs, the show, the passion for showing and what that costs. When a lot of other financial advisors that you speak to will say, you could be investing, all that money that you're going to spend in the market and make X return, rather than talking really about the emotional value. And I talk a lot about that as well, the emotional value versus monetary value. And I think that it does help having someone in your corner supporting you, because I think a lot of the time individuals, when they're talking to financial advisors, one, they can be intimidated, because especially if you don't know a lot about finance, it's hard to kind of talk the financial lingo. And then two, it's hard to admit how much you're spending on horses on a monthly basis to a financial professional. So I think just having someone in your corner that understands and that's in the industry can be incredibly empowering for you to, hey, I'm in debt because of this, my horse's vet bills. How can I get out of it? And I think it opens up those conversations a lot easier than it would be if that advisor was not in the equestrian world.
Without a doubt. I love that you say that you can talk about, understand, and acknowledge the emotional value versus the monetary value. I would say that our society as a whole needs that in today's world. We are in such a hustle culture that is being driven to chase a dollar. And I believe that it's leaving us all very empty emotionally, and we're not recognizing that. And so, whether it's horses or whether it's something else, there's so much value that is important to who we are and how we live that comes from the things that are truly important to us. And the things that are truly important to us, when we really pay attention, have nothing to do with money. They cost us money most of the time, right? They
Mhm.
cost us some money, but that, I believe, is really valuable advice, and that you use that to empower your clients, forward, to not give something up necessarily, but to learn and be more judicious maybe with their money.
Yes, I think it's about becoming financially responsible and being able to balance the passion and the finances. So it's saying, hey, I can't go to the show this month because I have to pay bills, or because I have something, I have debt that I have to pay off, or I have savings that I need to recover from. So it's being able to make those different choices rather than just saying, I'm going to go to the show and go in debt. Being financially responsible is being able to decipher between the two and say, I'm going to be financially responsible. This is how I do it, rather than
Yeah.
saying it's not black and white. There's a gray area.
Right. And that reminds me of one of the other recent posts that I read, and I think it was your 8 life skills that you kind of listed out. And I know that you said the first one was live within your means, but the second one was just what you're talking about, prioritize and compromise.
Yes.
And I was like, that is wise, so wise to be able to think that way. And I also believe that if we are surrounding ourselves with others who are supporting and championing who we are and what we're trying to do, that can be really important as well, that we, are sharing kind of our vulnerability and trusting someone who is able to provide sound advice.
Absolutely. And I do think sometimes within this industry that it kind of becomes a keeping up with the Joneses, especially if you're active on social media. So you feel the need to present yourself in this light, or the perception, because, horses do cost a lot of money and it is a very wealthy sport, that I think sometimes you can get into the rat race of money and spending money instead of actually taking a step back and saying, I can't afford this. And that's hard for some people to accept and to
Yeah.
figure out how you can afford it. Is it a half lease? Is it, selling your horse? Is it a full lease? Is it donating your horse? I think there's a lot of different options that aren't really discussed.
And so when you are talking with clients now, is there that moment where they're like, aha, like they feel like, okay, I can breathe. I've gotten this off my chest, and here's my situation, all of my details. And now they feel like they have someone who gets it.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think everyone's better when they have a plan. A financial plan is definitely what I do. And I love, for me personally, having steps, hitting those steps, and just seeing something written out and saying, yeah, you can pay off debt in a year and here's how we do it. I think a lot of individuals, when you give them the steps to do it, it's more easily broken down instead of becoming this overwhelming problem. You're tackling it very specifically. So it's not, oh my gosh, I'm $20,000 in debt and you just don't know how to tackle it. It's okay, I'm $20,000 in debt. Let's break this down and let's figure out how to get you out of that debt. Now, it's not going to happen immediately. It might take 12 months, it might take 24 months. But I think having a plan and being able to follow that really does provide people a lot of relief. I mean, and I do always say, I can give you a plan, but it's just as much on you as it is me, even more so, because I can give you this great laid out plan about, yes, this is how you become, you're going to become financially free and out of debt. But if you don't have the discipline to follow that plan or the desire to follow that plan, it doesn't matter what I say. You're not going to be able to figure it out. You're not going to be
Right.
able to ever come out of debt. So I really rely a lot on that individual's motivation to actually change and become financially responsible rather than just here's your plan and bye.
And so do you find that by the time they get to you, they're ready for that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of individuals that come to me are not ready to make a change.
Okay.
And, quite a few continuously, have me, provide them updates or have questions. Hey, this is going to be a lease price. Is this going to be enough to pay off student loans? Hey, I'm looking to buy a horse. Is this enough in my emergency fund to buy a horse? So having questions like that, and I think having someone in your corner continuously and having that support is very beneficial for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, without a doubt. Where do you see, Maria, the biggest challenges for young people, for the clients that you're now starting to work with? What are the biggest challenges that they come with?
I think it depends on the age of the individual. So the younger ones, I see a lot of, they don't understand how much riding is or how much horses cost because a lot of them have grown up with sometimes parents that have paid for the sport. And then out of college, the parents are kind of, all right, we're done. You're on your own. And, horses are an addiction and you've fallen in love with the sport or you want to be able to afford your own horse. And then I think that reality kind of sets in and hits you that, oh my gosh, this is really expensive. And then you go into kind of, you spiral into a depression about, oh, I can't actually, ride because it's so expensive. And how do I do this? So I think with the younger generation, it's more of the lack of knowledge about how expensive the sport is, especially if they weren't exposed to it growing up. And then for, I would say, like the later adult AMIs, it's about how to balance riding with work because a lot of the adult AMIs, you have to work in order to pay for riding. And a lot of them have gone into corporate jobs that allow them to pay for riding. So sometimes that balance between work and play is hard for a
Right.
lot of individuals.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so when you talk about and give the advice, Maria, to live within your means, I think and you're smiling. So tell us a little bit more about how you paraphrase that and why you are adamant that that's kind of the number one.
I always say budget. Budget, budget, budget. If you come talk to me, the first thing that we will go over is your budget because a lot of equestrians don't want to do the math, but that's very dangerous because when you don't do the math, you don't know what's going in, you don't know what's going out, and you can be negative every month and not realize it. And then you're coming to me and saying, I don't know why, I'm $10,000 in debt. We do your budget and you're spending more than you're earning, which is a problem. So I always say, live within your means because, I've seen in this industry individuals that have come into large inheritances or those making, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they live very extravagant lifestyles and they just can't afford it. On the flip side of that, I've seen individuals earning $70,000 a year, but they live a very modest lifestyle and they have excess to spend or to save or to invest. And it's kind of going back to what you said, it's about priorities and choices and being able to know the math, understand the math, and then make choices that reflect the math.
Yeah. And those are easy things to say, my friend, and not always hard to do, right?
Oh, absolutely. You would be shocked by the time people they don't want to see the numbers. No one wants to see the numbers because, for vet bills, for boarding, for ferry, or for anything, it's like, here's my credit card or here's my bank account, swipe it and be done with it. A lot of individuals don't even tell their partner, if they spend a lot of money on horses. So it's definitely scary to write it down, but it's very much necessary.
Yeah. And so you have clearly kind of found your purpose, your passion. And I know you talk a little bit about that. And so we heard about the evolution of you never wanted to be in finance, you were going to be pre-vet, and then you went into finance. And now you're getting narrow and you're really providing very equine specific financial advisement, but you are quick to add that to your life skills list to find your purpose and to create an impact. So, what does that mean for you?
Creating an impact means making a difference in someone's life. That's why I love this investing equestrian, because I feel that the information that I'm putting out, people really can benefit from and they find it valuable, which means that I'm, creating an impact and a difference in their life. And that for me gives me a purpose that, I'm making a difference in someone's life. And that's, I think, invaluable in a lot of ways. So when I, talk about, finding your purpose, it's, finding a way to impact the community that you're with and finding that self-fulfillment in whatever you do.
Yeah, I think that's so important to share. And we hear that said in different ways. But I think that to live the example of, kind of what has happened in your career in the last 5 to 10 years is really, a tremendous example of that. And what I love to share is for our young listeners, especially, is you don't have to know exactly what your life is going to look like in 10 years because whatever you think is not right anyway. It's just not going to be the way that it is. Like the path will not be linear. It will be very crooked. It will make some turns. You'll have some dead ends and things like that. So I just want them to hear from you maybe what advice you would have for someone who loves and is passionate about the equine industry, about the sport of equestrian, either or, and while they don't want to be a veterinarian or a horse trainer, that there are other options out there. And what would some of your advice be to that person?
Get on LinkedIn and start making connections. I mean, the amount of amazing, amazing individuals that I've met through LinkedIn, it has been incredible. And the advice that they've offered, the education I've gotten, the network that it's opened up for me has been absolutely incredible. And I think now, especially nowadays, connections are everything. I talk a lot about this as well, and your network is everything. So when you're not sure what you want to do, or you're trying to get into a very specific industry, a niche, a company, it is all about networking, and it's all about putting yourself out there and having people know your name in a good way, making sure that it's, you have a good reputation, but it's about networking, honestly.
Now,
I
Maria,
would say
I thought you called it playing in traffic.
I did. I did.
Yes.
I said playing in traffic. Yes.
Okay.
Playing
Why
in
do you say it
traffic.
that way?
It's going to horse shows. It's going to where you think that your network will be. So say I'm going to be a groom or, a trainer or something. I know that a lot of grooms and trainers go to horse shows. That's where I will be. And I will be talking to as many individuals as I can at that horse show. If I want to be a veterinarian, I will be going and looking up on Google, clinics that they have, or educational seminars, or different events that they host that are more targeted to that niche. And you can bet that I will be talking to those individuals there, and not even in a salesy way, just, hey, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? Hey, do you mind if I have, 15 minutes to kind of chat with you about your career path? I think that playing in traffic is very much about putting yourself out there and putting yourself in situations where you can get the best opportunities.
Yeah. I did. I love how you said that, because it really creates a strong visual of, get out there and put yourself in situations where you're going to have to adapt and react. And I always love to say, find those people that are 5, 10, 15 years ahead of you doing the things you might be interested in doing, working for the organizations that you might be interested in learning more about. But again, I'm going to steal your playing and go play in traffic. Go play in traffic. I'm going
Yeah.
to steal that from you, but it is your network is your net worth, right?
Absolutely. That's a great way to say it.
Well, that one I stole from someone else, so don't think that's original either.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, you don't know who you're going to run into or who you're going to talk to or how that person can impact your life or your future or, the way that your career path essentially. So I think it's very important to put yourself out there and to, play in traffic because you never know what's going to happen or who you're going to meet. And that could have a huge impact on the rest of your life.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We listeners, we cannot stress this enough. Go play in traffic. And so the other piece of advice that you share is being creative and thinking outside of the standard career or job role. So expound on that for us from your perspective.
Sure. And I've actually seen this a lot on LinkedIn from connecting with individuals. So I connect a lot with equestrians, and the amount of equestrians that I've seen on LinkedIn that have been able to mix their corporate career path or, their standard job, I'm going to say, like for me, it's finance and horses with horses or equestrians or having clients as equestrians has been outstanding. Like it's crazy the amount of creativity that individuals can come up with to combine horses and whatever they're working with. I mean, I've seen website designers that cater to equestrians or who do equestrian websites. I've seen individuals who do, data entry for equestrians or bookkeeping for equestrians. I mean, there's ways to incorporate horses and equestrians within standard jobs that I don't think a lot of individuals think about until you're like, wow, I can do this. I can actually cater to those types of clients because I'm in the industry. I know what they want, and I can create a service or product that relates to that.
Yeah.
So when I say be creative and step outside the box, it's about, following your passion, but also doing it in a way that, relates to your job and actually earning that income.
Right. Yeah, really good advice. And I love that you use the term getting creative, right? Because there's no longer the lanes that we've always had. I've been quick very recently to say I believe the 9 to 5 job is gone in our lifetime, right? It is no longer and we are reading so much about the gig economy and the creativity and innovation that Gen Z is bringing now to the workplace. And so I know that this will continue to be really important in understanding how to kind of put our lives together and find our purpose, right? Because we do want to make an impact, but we want to connect the things that we are passionate about and interested in. And we can't do that unless we go pursue some of those things and figure out not only what we are passionate about and interested in, but some of the things that we're not. Like go try things and you're like, that, you know what? Like, nope, that didn't work. That wasn't it.
Absolutely. I always say fail fast. You shouldn't be afraid of failure, but you need to fail fast. So make sure that you try something. And if it doesn't work out, you just found one way that, it doesn't work. And then you're going to try something else. So really just make sure that you're getting out there.
That's my favorite advice all day, Maria. Like I just wrote down that. I wrote that down and I wrote it really fast as well. I feel like I felt like I had to fail fast.
Fail
That's
fast.
incredible. Don't be
Action is
afraid
better
to
than no
fail.
action. Yes. Action is always
Yes.
better than no action. Just jump on it, take it. If it doesn't work out, oh well. Try the
Yeah.
next thing.
Oh my gosh. And that in today's world, I think we have more of a fear of failure than maybe we used to, right? Because I blame things on social media all the time. And so I just blame it on social media as much as anything is that we have this comparisonitis where we feel like we have to be perfect. We have to live perfectly and look perfectly and speak perfectly and have a perfect job and live a perfect life and all these things. But it just doesn't work that way. And so failing at something is proof that you are doing something.
Absolutely. And I don't think that's as talked about as much as it should be. I mean, people look at failure, especially on social media, as a negative, when in reality it should be a positive. Okay, you failed, so what? Like,
Yes. What's next?
you're never gonna, yeah, you're never gonna learn if you don't fail.
Oh, fantastic. So you mentioned, I'm jumping around a little bit today, but this is such a fun conversation. But you have mentioned the AMI term a couple of times. So I want to make sure for our listeners that they know what we're talking about when we talk about the AMI. And that, so let's just use that to go right into talking about your podcast, The Working AMI. So tell us what that means and what it is and what you're doing.
Yes. So the AMI is essentially adult amateur. So it's any individual over the age of 18 that is a non-professional equestrian. And we've kind of created our own, I guess, community as adult amateurs in riding, because I think a lot of adult amateurs can relate to one another with family, husbands, wives, work, horses, and trying to balance out everything. And I think having that community that you can relate to is incredibly special, and being able to bounce ideas off of each other and concerns and kind of ask individuals that are in similar situations and boats as you know, how did you do this? I'm struggling with this, is very unique. So that's what I mean when AMI is adult amateur.
Yeah, I did want you. I'm trying always to be cognizant of the acronyms and the verbiage that we use, but I wanted you to explain that. But I thought it was a great transition into the Working AMI podcast. So tell us a little bit about that.
So this podcast, I actually started with one of my best friends up here, Nora, and we co-host it together. And we started last year in July. I think it'll actually be 1 year since we've started this. And it started as just something between the two of us, because we kept on seeing, you know, we'd always say unrealistic expectations with unrealistic budgets. And we were just in all of this and thought it would be a really fun and entertaining way to kind of talk through the qualifications about, you know, I mean, we're not professionals by any means. We're not appraisers, but we do it for fun. And I think
Right.
we've gotten pretty good over the last year. So many people have sent us submissions, but it's basically about bringing price transparency to the equestrian community and the sport, which is not talked about. But individuals will send us emails about what they paid for their horse, what they sold their horse for, lease prices. They'll give us, you know, a description of the horse. And I think it's very helpful for a lot of individuals who are listening to it about, you know, what to look for, what things cost. It's kind of giving people a reality check, I think, about
Yeah.
how I can make expectations and budget align, instead of throwing out these crazy numbers, crazy expectations, and then getting upset or wondering why you're not getting the horse or the pony that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So I think it's just bringing a lot of transparency, needed transparency to the sport, and helping individuals really focus on, you know, what to look for and kind of our thought process behind pricing. I mean, we have such a fun time doing it.
Yeah, I love it. That's why I just wanted to make sure we got a plug in for that one because, again, I started in May, you guys started in July. And so we're on this first year of our podcast journey. And I think that that's just a really cool platform for, sharing information the way you are.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, I think social media, while it does have its negatives, I think it does have a lot of positives. And
Yes.
one of them is being able to, you know, have podcasts like this and talk to
Yeah.
other equestrians and be able to talk about things candidly that you might not be able to or want to normally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm always quick to say, use it for good and not evil. It is meant to
Yes.
be productive and positive. And so if you are contributing to the negativity and the drama, we don't want it. We don't want it. Go somewhere else or try and work on that. But productive and positive, it's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I've met some great people on social media, and it has really, it's been remarkable. The individuals that you meet, you know, I'm friends with individuals I've never met in person before, and that was just because of
Yes.
social media. And that's like LinkedIn, I'm including in social media because I think it's becoming way more of a social platform now, when it was just business prior, I think that's great. And if you are looking to get into a career with horses or elsewhere, I think LinkedIn's a fantastic place to get started.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Well, Maria, as we wrap up, I've been asking all of my guests this year 2 questions. The first question is, what is one book or podcast that you would recommend to our listeners and why?
How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yes, that's a class.
Oh my gosh, an absolute classic. But I think especially now it's very prevalent because it goes into the emotional intelligence aspect of things that before I don't think was as talked about. Now emotional intelligence is incredibly important. And I would almost argue more important than just the academic side of things. And when I say emotional intelligence, I mean how you present yourself, how you perceive yourself, how you can control your emotions, how you can make others feel, how you can read a room. It's not about the, knowledge base, it's about the emotional aspect and the behavioral aspect. And I think if you can become, have very high emotional intelligence, it's going to serve you very well in your career. I think that's incredibly important. And a lot of individuals and companies are looking for that now.
You are singing a song of my heart, my friend, without a doubt. It is the key to becoming our most effective selves. So I love that. How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's been a long time since I read that. I was early in my career, I was a huge Dale Carnegie follower. And so maybe it's time for me to go back and read that book again, because that's a good one.
Yeah, I would highly suggest everybody read it just because I think it has such great advice, but it also gets you thinking about things that you normally wouldn't think about.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
definitely would be my number
Very
one.
wise. Very wise. Okay. Question number 2. What is one piece of advice related to life balance that you would give our listeners in the face of today's hustle culture?
Life balance. I would say don't get caught up with life that you forget how to live and how to live life. I think while I respect a good hustle and I think it's great to get out there and, work your butt off to get what you want, I think you have to understand how to prioritize and how to prioritize your happiness, prioritizing your family, prioritizing things that are very important to you. And I think a lot of the time our identity gets caught up in our work or our job that we kind of forget about all the other things that are going on. And then when you lose, if you lose work or you lose your job, I think people have a very hard time adjusting. So I would say in order for the work-life balance, I would say don't get caught up so much on the work aspect of it and focus more on the life aspect of it. And I think you'll be more internally fulfilled.
Yes. Yeah. Really great way to say that. Are we working to live or living to work?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And take money to the grave with you.
There is that. And you are here to help us build wealth and make sure that we are well taken care of and that we can live a long and prosperous life, but we can't take it with us.
Absolutely. I always say as an advisor, our goal is to help you reach your goals. Your goal doesn't have to be making more money. It could be, I want to buy a horse. I want to spend money on this. I want to save money for my children. So when I pass, I'm leaving behind a legacy, or I want to, make sure that I'm donating to charities that I care about. Our job is to use your assets in order to help you reach those goals. And I think that's where a lot of the times people get a little thrown off by that because they're like, oh, well, as an advisor, your main job is investment management and making money. But that's not it. Our job is to make you happy. Like we want you to reach your goals, and we just have to figure out ways to make that happen through financial means.
Yes. Well done. Well, you are certainly building quite an empire, as I call it, right? Like each of us that's out here kind of, building something, we're trying to make an impact. And to your point, you are making an impact. And therefore, that's your brand, your empire. And we want to encourage and inspire others to do the same thing and reach out, connect with us. Is there anything else, Maria, that you would share as we wrap up here for our listeners today, your journey, your role as the investing equestrian. You are a young, thriving leader and equine professional.
Reach out to individuals and connect, because there's a lot of people that are willing to help you out. There's a lot of really great, really nice individuals out there that take advantage of that and connect with people and build your network.
Yeah, awesome. I couldn't say it better myself. Maria, thank you so much for being a guest on the Thriving Equine Professional, for giving up some of your very valuable time to share with us today. I know that we will have some listeners that want to connect with you. We talked a little bit about the investing equestrian, and so I'll let you share, but I think you're on Insta, TikTok, you've got a website, but tell us a little, go ahead and share with our listeners how they can reach you and connect with you.
Just like you said, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm actually very active on LinkedIn now. So that's probably the best way to connect with me, or DMing me on any of the social media platforms would be probably the best.
Perfect. And I will include that in our show notes. So with that, thank you so much for being here today. And Thrivers, I hope you have an amazing day. We will see you back here, same time next week. Cheers.